Hey there, coaches. I'm Rich Prado, owner of Play in School and host of Travel Ball Talk, where I talk to travel ball coaches from the best organizations about the current and future state of travel baseball. Now, today's call features my new favorite coach, James Lowe, also known as Coach Ballgame. This call is going to be a little different. Coach Ballgame does not coach travel baseball. In fact, in some ways, he's the antithesis to the traditional travel ball coach. Coach Ballgame is one of the most positive and entertaining coaches I've seen in a long time. I think we all have a lot to learn from him. I'd encourage you to binge on his content, which I'll link to in the show notes. Reach out to him. Bring him to your town. You won't regret it. I hope you enjoy this episode of Travel Ball Talk.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Travel Ball Talk. So if you've been following along, if you've been listening to these things, which I know my dad is. Hi, Dad, and a couple other folks have been too. So appreciate all 3 or 4 of you listeners out there. But if you've been following along, you know that I've been pretty much focused on the travel ball community. That's the community I've kind of lived and breathed for 11 years now. And I tell you that the travel ball world is filled with wonderful people. And it's an awesome thing. It's a different world than the baseball I grew up in, and it's mostly positive, right? It's probably like 90% positive, but the 10% of stuff, I don't want to call it negative, but there's 10% of stuff out there that can make somebody who like me, who's in it up to their neck every single day in the trenches, it can make somebody like me cynical, right? And I think if you ask some of the people who live and breathe this stuff, there are those little things that can rub you the wrong way. I mean things like, you know, maybe the high costs of playing baseball, or maybe the never-ending travel, or maybe the watered down, or maybe the parents who don't have their minds or hearts in the right place, or maybe the coach who's doing this for the wrong reasons. You know, you see these little things, right? And it's not the whole world of travel ball, but it's enough to make somebody cynical. Well, this is kind of a long intro. The other day, a friend of mine posted up a podcast that he was a guest on. His name is Grant Achilles. He's the head coach at Brown University. He's a good old Virginia guy. Played ball at Wake Forest. Wonderful human being. And we're friends over on the social medias, and I saw him post this interview with this individual that I never heard of. So I like Grant. I figure Grant's going to talk to cool people. So I went over to the interview, listened to it, and more than anything, I found the guy who was doing the interview to be a breath of fresh air, an absolute just like an orb of positivity. And I think we're going to talk a lot about positivity on today's call. Without further ado, I do want to introduce James Lowe, also known as Coach Ballgame. Coach, James, how should I address you today?
I tell you what, Coach Richie Prado, it is a pleasure to be on with you. And you know what? I always introduce myself as James to grown-ups, but to all the kids, it's Coach Ballgame. And a lot of times, or most of the time, you go by nicknames. So I'll say my real name's James, my nickname's Coach Ballgame, and I'll kind of let them decide. You know, I'll let them have their own interpretation and shape their ball game. And no pun intended, but most folks just call me Ballgame. There's a little bit of Jimmy, a little Jimmy Ballgame, a little Coach. Maybe like 3 people call me James, but I would say the majority just call me Ballgame. So I'll leave it up to you, Coach Richie Prado.
All right, ball game it is. So listeners at home, I would not be offended if you hit pause right now and you go to your internet machine and you go over to coachballgame.com. You hit enter to get into the main part of the website, and you watch the intro video, and that's going to tell you everything you need to know about Coach Ballgame. And then you go over to his Twitter account, and his Instagram account and his YouTube channel, and just you'll get lost in there. I've shared his accounts with friends of mine, and then they report back to me about 2 hours later and say they got sucked in down the hole they went. Coach, for those listening at home, first of all, you should be famous. Everybody who's listening, everybody who's in the baseball world should know you right now. They might not, but I think in 18 months, I think you're going to be famous. I think
you immediately tapped into my love language, which is words of affirmation. So, I mean, the intuition that you have through the mobile phone to be able to do that, I mean, bravo.
So, yeah, you got it. Let me ask you to describe for our listeners at home. Tell us, what do you do today? We're gonna talk about your background in a second, but what do you do today in 2019 in the world of baseball?
Absolutely. Well, I'm a collector of number 2 pencils. I'm a big fan of number 2 pencils. So I travel the streets of Orange County, California here, and I just look under benches and nicks and crannies and things of that nature for number 2 pencils. That is first. Second, I'm going to make sure I get a bowl of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and I'm going to get a big bowl, wash it down with a nice cold milk, and that's number 2. And that kind of gets the day going. So I think from there, I had a podcast before this one, had an interview with an old college pal, and then after that, I'm here with you. But my day is revolves around baseball. Now the kids are in school right now, so I can't really coach them. So and I have some time to hang out with my kids. I got 2 young daughters, so I'm always taking them to school, or I'm taking the baby, the 1-year-old, to the gym or something, and they get them down for their naps, feed them. These human beings. You have a 3-year-old, like
Ooh.
It's a whole ordeal, like making sure these little things stay alive and all that stuff. So that's kind of my day. And then you get to 3:00 and I hop on a ball field and then I do my thing.
Tell us about that thing. What is that thing? For the person who hasn't seen you in action, tell us about the thing. What is that?
Well, I grew up loving the game of baseball. My dad, he built this big green wall in the backyard when we were young tots, and we would throw the tennis ball up against it, and he built this pitcher's mound that we would throw off of, and we were just always playing sports nonstop when we were youngins, and I really about middle school fell in love with the game of baseball, and through various routes I found kind of my calling, which is to coach baseball to kids. But I would say coaching baseball is like way down on the list of the actual priorities of my job. First things first, I want to make sure that kids just have an outrageous amount of fun. Like whether I'm coaching a Sandlot League, or I'm doing a private lesson, or I'm running a camp, whatever it is, I just want to make sure that these kids, they see this patch of grass that they're on, and they remember it to be an outrageous amount of fun. And if I've done that, then they'll come back, and I can teach them the skills of baseball. I can teach them how to be a good human being, which is probably priority number 2 for me. Just want to make sure these kids are being good people, and they're learning how to do things the right way. Under my motto, what a ball player does if you're doing these things, then you're a ball player. If you're tucking your shirt in, if you're giving good eye contact, if you're shooting basketball instead of playing video games all day, if you're helping mom and dad do the dishes, if you're doing all these things, then you're a ball player. You're like Roberto Clemente. But if you're playing too many video games or you're being mean, disrespectful, then you're not in that fraternity yet. So that thing I do, it really revolves around the three themes. Make it really, really fun, make these kids great people, and then, teach the skills of baseball. But I've kind of found a way to teach these skills in an engaging, fun way. That's how they remember it. I started out coaching like these kids were 18, but, they're not 18, they're 8, they're 7, they're 6. So using references to animals and making things rhyme and doing my research on cartoons and food, all that good stuff. That's what they remember. That's what they relate to. So teach the skills in that kind of engaging way. So that's my thing, man. That's my thing.
That's an awesome way to describe your thing. There's so many of us who take our thing so seriously, and that was part of what drew me into your content, is how lighthearted and how fun going to one of your practices or one of your workouts would be. And just for clarification for those listening at home, Low Tide, Jimmy Ballgame, James, Coach Ballgame, whatever you want to call him, he is honed in on that youth kid, that youth ball player. How young are you going? Maybe 5 or 6?
I like to get them started early. Like I want, in a perfect world, I'm the first experience to baseball that they have.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go as early as 3.5, and usually 4 is the number, and I start them out there, and then I'll go all the way up to 12. And once they graduate, then they become a coach. They become an assistant coach, and they help me out. And that's that thing. But I get them going early, and at that age, there's some rolling around in the dirt. There's some chewing on gloves. There's a lot of chasing butterflies. Like you hear that becomes cliche, chasing butterflies. But no, butterflies are fascinating to 4-year-olds. So so are airplanes, actually. So one of the things I learned how to do in like year 10, after getting upset with kids for looking at airplanes and yelling at airplanes, is now whenever an airplane flies overhead, we stop camp and we sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" to that airplane.
Love it.
And that's our gig. And that it kind of bundles up in a nutshell kind of how I've transformed as a coach. Like I can take the hands off a little bit and let things happen, and then we all have fun. You have a lot of parents come to me, I'm not having fun, the kid's not having fun, and I remember that to be my first experience as a coach, is nobody's having fun. And through the years, I kind of changed the expectations and figured out how to get everything done and still have fun with it. Yeah,
I'm just envisioning. Listen, I get it. There's a place and time for launch angles and spin rates and all this stuff that these guys are talking about and teaching. But you scratch your head going, I mean, I'm an old man and I can't understand half the words that are coming out of the hitting instructors' mouths now. You wonder, are those kids having outrageous amounts of fun, right? Because that's your number one pillar, is outrageous amounts of fun. Without that, do they come back?
Exactly, and you're tapping into a small percentage of people when you start talking launch angle, and that is great for the 12-year-old, 13-year-old who's just already fallen in love with the game, who's playing it's playing year long and loves it and wants to grow and wants to become a great player. But what about the millions of 7-year-olds that have never played, but they're interested? That what's this game? What's that?
Yeah.
That's a bat. This is a ball. There's so much of that. And I mean, I was never told about launch angle, and I went through college playing baseball and feel like I know the game pretty well, but those two words were never put into the same sentence for me. That has come around since I retired from baseball, but it taps into a small percentage, as does travel ball in general. That is great. 100%. I'm all for it for a certain type of kid, but there's a whole bunch of other types of kids out there, and they need to be drawn in. You know what I mean?
I do. Yeah, once you're into the travel ball circuit, you don't have to necessarily be sold on how fun the game can be, but sometimes you have to be reminded, right? When it becomes you see that kid, he's like, golly, all my buddies are going to the swimming hole today, and I got to go to this, the 57th game of the summer. You might have to remind that kid just how much fun it is. Hey, listen.
Well, the burnout. No, on that topic, real quick, the burnout thing is a real deal, and I saw it firsthand with my best friend. He's the best player in our hometown of North Carolina, and he got burnt out by his freshman year at Chapel Hill. He just didn't want to play anymore. And meanwhile, I'm thriving. I'm loving it. And I played all the sports, played basketball, football, baseball, and I can't get enough of this game at the age of 36 now. But that burnout phase is real, and the Sandlot fields are empty, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Perfect segue, actually, and you touched on a little bit. I told you we'd go back a little bit in time, and you mentioned you're from North Carolina. If I'm not mistaken, looking at a map of North Carolina, you're sort of from the outskirts or suburbs, or not too far from Greensboro, North Carolina. Is that right?
That's right, dead central. A little town called Asheboro, and it's got a couple neighboring little one-horse towns, Ramseur and Franklinville, and that little area there is where I grew up and learned how to drink milk and learned how to to put the figure 4 Ric Flair move on my brothers, and they taught me all about the smell of chicken houses and NASCAR.
Well, you left something else out. Somebody down there taught you how to read and write at a pretty high level, and you ended up heading north to an Ivy League school. We mentioned Brown University earlier with current head coach Grant Achilles, but before Grant was there, you were there as a player.
That's right. The luck of the draw. I was actually at a state games in Raleigh my junior year of high school, and a coach who wasn't even there when I ended up attending Brown, but he was the assistant coach at the time, was in Raleigh watching these state games, saw me play. I happened to go 10 for 12 in the tournament, and I pitched as well. And that began the process of the head coach calling, and it got down to Brown and UNC, NC State, Elon, all the state schools. But when I looked at it and when I talked to my mom and dad about it, there was one coach and one school that I had a chance. I felt like I had a chance to start freshman year. I had a chance to really play, and it happened to be one of the top 10 schools in the nation as well. So Brown Bears, very proud of those 4 years. Great 4 years.
Now, I never got to see you play, but in our short discussions leading up to this particular call, you kind of told me a little bit about yourself as a ball player, and I think everybody who's played baseball maybe didn't play with a guy quite like you, but probably played against somebody like you, and it's fair to say you're the guy who would never stop yelling from center field and would never stop running, even if that meant taking out the fence to catch a fly ball. Is that accurate?
Yes. So I don't, for some reason, I own the career hit by pitch record at Brown University. I got hit 55 times in my 4 years there.
Let me pause you. Do you think that had anything to do with chattering from the outfield?
I'm thinking so, because I didn't. It wasn't like I was on top of the plate. I didn't dive into the plate. The inside pitch was actually my favorite pitch. I had to work hard to slap it the other way. So as I think back, I think it was first the nice mullet that I had that would just wave in the air when I would sprint like Sammy Sosa to my position in the outfield. And then something I really strived to do was, in between every pitch that our pitchers would throw, I would scream something. It might be my favorite cereal. It might be a positive message like, give it your best. You're my best friend. There's nobody even close. Sometimes I might sing a song out there. And from the dugout, just same exact thing. I needed to be yelling and getting things going. The morale needed to be high at all times. So I think that high motor might have ticked a couple coaches off, some players on Harvard or Princeton's team, and they were like, just being this guy, man, try to shut him up. So I ended up kind of gathering this love for getting hit. If I got hit, I would try to make it humorous. I would make something comical, like just sprinting to first base after I got hit, not rubbing it or wiggling it out or doing some sort of dance move, maybe high stepping it to first base. But I wouldn't call myself a junk talker by any means, but annoying
maybe
to the other team. Sure. Absolutely. I'll take that. All in the grand scheme of competition, I mean, it's mano a mano, and that was my personality, to make my teammates laugh, loosen them up, and in my own weird way, fire them up,
Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna kind of take a little bit of a left turn here. You do have an acting background.
Correct.
I don't.
That's right.
I don't get the vibe that Coach Ballgame is any kind of. I don't get that it's a game. I don't get that it's a put up. I don't get that you're faking it. All I get is authenticity. Would your wife kind of tell me that you are Coach Ballgame?
Correct. Yeah, and she did it in the documentary, which you talked about on the website. There is the documentary, but when people ask her, "Is Coach Ballgame really like this in real life?" and she's like, 100% yes. Like, well, as far as my acting background, I wasn't really enjoying business econ in college, and I always enjoyed making people laugh. So I had a teammate on the baseball team at Brown say, "Hey, try an acting class. It's fun. People laugh. It's great." And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with just kind of laughing and making people laugh. So my whole acting career, it didn't amount to anything at all. But what I did do is I took a lot of writing classes and comedy classes and improv classes, and it really, more than anything, kind of taught me more about myself. Like when I see somebody act, I don't want to see them play a role that shows me, oh, they're a talented actor. I like actors who just really show me awesome sides of themselves. Like you think about Bill Murray, like he just shows me amazing things about himself. Same with Jim Carrey and Jack Nicholson. Like my favorites, that they're not trying to trick me in any way. They're just being as honest as I can. So that's what I took out of my acting career. And then you move into my coaching. Yes, I've found kind of tricks to get kids to be engaged, but that's the nature of the game that I'm in. I'm trying to get them to learn how to throw a baseball correctly, remember what I told them, have an outrageous amount of fun. So I'm always trying to create and write. I'll bring different characters. Today I'm going to a Sandlot in Dana Point, and I've already got my Old Man Wrigley outfit. It's a Chicago Cubs onesie and a big beard and a wig, and he's Coach Ballgame's 180-year-old older brother, and he once beat Babe Ruth in a hot dog eating contest. He beat a farm goat in a staring contest. Took him 3 days, but he did it. This guy, he taught Honus Wagner how to chew sunflower seeds. So that's Old Man Wrigley. Just to make it memorable, keep it light, keep it fun, and so when I'm able to marry art and baseball, that's my perfect concoction, and to be able to do that on a daily basis, oh man, I thrive off it. I need it.
Okay, so that clears the air. James Lowe is Coach Ballgame,
and Coach Ballgame is James Lowe.
But you do have some alter egos, one of which is Old Man Wrigley. And for you guys, again, find his website, find his Instagram, find his Twitter. You'll see Old Man Wrigley make many, many appearances. My favorite alter ego of yours is probably Flamingo Jennings. Can you introduce who Flamingo Jennings is to our listening audience?
Well, absolutely. Now, Flamingo Jennings is a broadcaster, and he's a Little League broadcaster, and he thinks fast and he talks fast, and it's kind of a marriage between you've got the famous broadcasters in baseball like Vin Scully, but then you got Jack Buck, and then you got Ernie Harwell, and you got Pat Hughes, and just a marriage of Bob Uecker, and all my favorites. If you put that into a concoction, and then you put that guy in a little league baseball booth, then you've got Flamingo Jennings, and he's I've always enjoyed broadcasters, and I would sit in my living room floor and watch Jim Nantz call the golf when I was 3 years old, and I grew up watching Sports Center and Dan Patrick and Keith Overman, and I've now become friends, so to speak, with a lot of broadcasters, and I've just always been a broadcaster connoisseur, and I was like, why don't we create this character that is a Little League broadcaster who calls a game like that kids would want to hear. So what Flamingo Jennings does is he finds out random facts about these 10-year-old players, like what is your favorite cereal, or what is your batting average on days when you eat peanut butter, or what's your slugging percentage when your shirt is tucked in, and with all of that, he's got a lot of good material, and that's Flamingo Jennings. But yeah, he's all of these alter egos that I have, they're me, but with a little bit of a little mustard on them,
a little costume. Now there's another one, Dougie Fungo is another one that comes out, and then
sure.
You got. Now this goes back to Coach Ballgame, but you got a nickname during the NLCS a few years ago. You're in you're at the game, at the Dodgers game, if I remember correctly, and all of a sudden #MilkGuy is trending on the social media. What is your obsession with milk, first of all, because you're not 3 anymore, and second of all, what the heck happened at this? I think it was an NLCS game. Or was it a World Series game? Either way, regardless.
It was Game 5 of the World Series. So as far as milk goes, I've like I said, I love number 2 pencils. I also have I love benches. If I ever see a bench, I have to sit on it. And I've always, let's just be honest, I'm a little left of center in everything I do or think, and that's just how I've always been. The way I dress, Hawaiian shirts and camouflage onesies. I've always enjoyed making people laugh in whenever capacity I can. But as far as milk, I love milk. I've always had milk with pasta. I love how it washes down some nice spaghetti sauce, and I've continued to drink it into my older years. And now working with kids, it makes a lot of sense. Like, you need to drink milk, get those bones strong, and I'm a big advocate for it. So we kind of fast forward to this year, and I've become good friends with a guy named Joe Buck, who's the national voice of baseball, been that way for many years, and he digs the way I coach and the different way of engaging kids with our game of baseball. He loves baseball, he wants to grow it. So he found me, and we became friends, and he sent a production company to come out to California to shoot this documentary that is on my website. And then I went to St. Louis and shot some interviews with him and Ozzie Smith and Jim Edmonds, and then he's kind of taken these documentaries and these pilots to the commissioner of Major League Baseball and to the head of Fox in an effort to grow the game and maybe create a show around this guy who just loves baseball and loves teaching kids. And so he was able to get Coach Ballgame 3 minutes of a segment during the NLCS. And this is when the Brewers were playing the Dodgers, and he worked it out where the Fox crew was going to come down and shoot one of my camps. And so the Fox comes down on a Sunday, and I rally a bunch of kids together, and we shoot my camp, and you can find that on my YouTube page as well. But I rattle off the nicknames, and we have a little fun with A-Rod and Big Papi, where they do the Attaboy challenge, because they're on the pregame show, and this was for the pregame show. Well, at the end of that video, the kids, in an act of celebration, they pour milk all over Coach Ballgame, a la like the pros would do with champagne, and it just made sense. Like, I love milk. It's a weird obsession. Whatever you want to say about it. I don't really drink alcohol at all. I haven't in about a decade, but I love coffee and I love milk. So I'm kind of obsessed with those. And so I brought some jugs. The kids poured it all over me. They had a blast. And then we get to the World Series, and Joe's like, "Hey, I got 2 tickets, and we're gonna. I might even be able to give you a shout out on the World Series." So me, just being goofy and wacky, of course, I say, "Well, golly, let's bring some milk to the World Series." So I get a half gallon of milk at the 7-Eleven there at the 110 South in PCH, and driving up with my wife, Mrs. Ballgame, we go to Game 5 of the World Series, and I get to the security, and I put the jug of milk down with my wallet and my phone and my keys, and I walk through the thing there, the security thing, and then the security guy pushes the milk and my wallet and my keys and phone towards me and says, "Wait, you love milk too?"
No, he doesn't.
And I said, I absolutely love milk, man. And he's like, "Oh, nice going. Enjoy that milk." And then a second security guard, we're walking past him. My wife's like, "Wait, you guys are really letting him in with milk? And she was like, yeah, it's milk. It's a closed container. There's no laws against that. So there I go strolling into the World Series with my milk. Well, the cameras find me, I think mostly because I was sitting next to some famous people. And all of a sudden, Twitter goes nuts. Hashtag milk guy at the World Series. And, it wasn't a very exciting game. The Red Sox closed it out. But in the top of the ninth inning, the cameras shoot over, and Joe's like, hey, there's Coach Ballgame. He did some work for us on the NLCS, last week with a jug of milk. And John Smoltz is like, that was a jug of milk, wasn't it? And then all these different sites on Twitter to take a picture. And if you want to have a full day of laughing out loud, I got called everything from Tom from MySpace to just what you name it, ridiculous stuff. But hey, it once again it did what my mission is in life. It gave people a reason to kind of chuckle and laugh, and yeah, that's it. That's Milk Guy.
Unbelievable story. God, there's another unbelievable story that I want to hear just a piece of. Is this Dan Patrick is one of my favorites. Okay, from just growing up watching SportsCenter, and he does this Jim Nantz sound-alike contest, and you with your obsession of announcers, obviously this is in your wheelhouse, and you submitted an entry and sent your video to Dan Patrick. Did you know Dan Patrick before this?
Nope, did not know him at all, and I'm always a big fan. Like you said, with SportsCenter, that was right in our wheelhouse of growing up. Keith and Dan really showed our generation how to look at sports, how to not take it too seriously, how to have some fun with it. SportsCenter was hilarious, and it was a big deal. You didn't have internet, so the 11 o'clock SportsCenter, got to watch that.
Yeah,
and they were hilarious. So they really kind of framed the way I looked at life, to be honest, and sports specifically. So I've been a big fan, and he's got his radio show, the Dan Patrick Show now. And for 10 years, they've done this competition, the Jim Nantz Sound-alike competition. And somebody told me about it, and so I started listening into the radio show and started loving the podcast and the show. And then when the week of the Masters came around, they're like, Jim Nantz competition. And usually, and I had done it a couple years prior, the contest, and I didn't win. I did it 2 times before and didn't win. But the contest is where you're sitting in Butler Cabin, acting like Jim Nantz, and you're talking about, you're setting the scene for Amen Corner and the Masters, and at Amen Corner, I am tickling my toenails are tickling the backside of Amen Corner, and I just saw a red-tailed deer frolic in Ray's Creek. So that's kind of the gist of the competition. But this time, what I did is I was like, let's flip it on its head a little bit. Why don't we get a different side of Jim Nantz? And I've read Jim Nantz's book, and he's just the most stand-up guy you could ever know. I'm imagining, I haven't met him, I've talked to him, but he does have a fun side. And I'm like, let's shine a light on Jim Nantz's fun side. So my wife had a great idea. Do the minute leading into live. Like, how would he warm up? He just did the Final Four, and now he's in Butler Cabin. How would he warm up? And so and you can see it on YouTube as well. But I'm going to be
linking to all of this stuff in the show notes.
Great, that'll be good. But it really caught on, and the boys there at the Dan Patrick show, they absolutely loved it. And I'm just kind of warming up his voice. Okay, camera's right there. 45 seconds to live. Thank you. 45 seconds. Fred Couples has a supple spine. Juniper, juniper, juniper. Nick Faldo and his trousers are bathing in Ray's Creek. Dottie Pepper. Thank you. 30 seconds to live. So he's just saying these things kind of like, his brainstorm salad of what Jim Nantz is getting into the mode. And it caught fire. I won. And what happens is when you win, Jim Nantz sends you a case of his wine. And like I said, I don't drink, but my friends and family have absolutely loved it. It's called The Calling, the wine. And Jim Nantz calls you. So I'm on my treadmill at the gym running, and I knew the call was coming. Like, Dan said on the radio, like, Jim's going to call you. I don't know when, but he's going to call you. And so the phone rings, and it says no caller ID. And I answered, hello, and I hear this. It sounds like somebody's leaving a message. The skies are slightly gray here over Amen Corner, and the doves are just flying so breathlessly, so effortlessly in the air. The juniper trees are, and I'm like, somebody's playing a joke on me here. Who is this? And then all of a sudden I hear Jim Nantz laugh, and I'm like, that's the laugh of Jim Nantz. And I have this out-of-body experience. I'm like, this is actually happening right now. And I just screamed, Jim Nantz, like in the middle of the gym. I'm sure people thought I was nuts. But I run out, and he's laughing, and he's like, I got to tell you, I've seen a lot of these impersonations, but, yours is definitely up there, one of my favorites. And, it was out-of-body experience. But we talked for 14 minutes. In 30 seconds. I timed it. I looked at it after we had finished, and he couldn't have been nicer. Just so kind. It didn't treat me less than, and that I've been kind of lucky with, the people I've met. Interviewing Ozzie Smith, Jim Edmonds, Joe Buck. These guys, they're household names, but they don't treat me less than at all. Same with Jim Nantz. He was interested in my life and my family and what I do. It was just really, really cool. So yeah, that is kind of separate of my coach Ballgame baseball, but that love of broadcasting kind of got me in touch with Jim Nantz. So literally in 1 week's time, I talked on the phone with Joe Buck, Dan Patrick, and Jim Nantz.
That's a pretty good week.
Pretty good week there. So pretty fun stuff, man. That all thanks to Dan Patrick on that right there. But hopefully one day I'll get to meet Dan and Jim. That would be that'd be something else.
I'm gonna be putting all the links to these little short videos over on the page with the show notes. So let's circle back and talk some baseball and talk about what Coach Ballgame has going on. You're teaching life skills. That's the core. That's the pillar of Coach Baseball. You hook them by having fun, and then you're teaching them these things, these life skills. You're teaching them to be polite and to work hard and to stand up straight and look folks in the eyes, and hopefully they learn some baseball too, right? But like you said, they're not going to learn any baseball if they don't come back because they didn't have fun.
That's right. Yeah.
Now you're a West Coast guy. You're doing throughout the year. You're running local camps and individual lessons, correct?
Right. So that's the beauty of living in Southern California is I can work outdoors year round, and I can run these private lessons, and I do that year round. And then I can run the camps and clinics and another thing I've started called the Sandlot League, where, you have a weekly game, and I've got one in Dana Point, Huntington Beach, Irvine, and Laguna Hills. and kids just show up. We throw some bases down and play a Sandlot game, and give them all nicknames and throw the drum set in the on-deck circle and have a great time. But just being out in Southern California, I am 3,000 miles away from my family, but I'm able to get back now and run camps in North Carolina every June. So hopefully the way it's trending is I'll continue to do my thing out here, but be able to travel. And what I love doing most is running these camps and bringing my tone and my stance to different ears, brand new ears. So that's what I'm most excited about doing.
So it looks like a little bit of research I did. It looks like you've got your summer camp set up, obviously, for California. You also mentioned some camps happening this summer in North Carolina, and looked like maybe some camps in Ohio. What I would ask these people listening. Listen, nobody wants to infringe upon your camps. I don't know too many of the folks I deal with who are doing camps for 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. At that youngest age group. Most of the folks I deal with, they want an older kid who's ready to be serious. What I could totally see happening is one of these listeners who's tuned in right now wants to bring you in for a 1-day or 2-day experience to get the community to come out. And if that kid does have outrageous amounts of fun and wants to come back and continue, honing that skill set, well, then that guy who helped bring you to that town, he's there for him to teach you the skills. But you got to hook them first. Yeah. I could totally see that happening. I would love for somebody to give you a call and say, hey, come to my hometown. We need to get 25 kids or 50 kids out here and introduce baseball with your unique style. First of all, you mentioned something about a drum. Have you ever mistaken your drum for another coach's drum on a baseball field?
Sure have not, and I've had a lot of coaches say, I have never seen a drum set on a baseball field before. What? And that is such a high compliment. Like, if somebody can say, wait, you are doing baseball like I've never seen it, then it doesn't get any better than that, and that's the whole goal. And I would love somebody call and wants me to fly in and run a little camp. The cool thing about doing it in different towns is you really see what it does to the community. Like the parents, the way they kind of jump in and start trading baseball cards with the kids after camp, or the kid goes home and tells their parents about the Roberto Clemente story that Coach Ballgame told, or teaches them all the salutes. Like, they sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" to every helicopter that flies overhead when they're driving around in their car. Like, it seeps into the school and the home, and this positivity. That's the great part about it. It transcends baseball and goes in. So, it's my mission. It's what I'm here to do, and I hope it lasts forever.
I'm loving it. It's completely infectious. This positivity, this outrageous amounts of fun just has me all psyched right now. I'm pumped up. I admit I'm one of those folks, like at the beginning when I mentioned how easy it is to become cynical when you're neck deep 11 years into the travel ball thing. It's
but
easy.
I gotta tell you something about that age group is, they graduate out of my camps at age 12, but then they all want to come back and be assistant coaches. Ooh. And I'm telling you what, if you think a 16-year-old doesn't get jazzed up about doing an Attaboy challenge with another 16-year-old, or rocking some chest bumps, or an interpretive dance challenge against another 16, 17-year-old, then you're crazy. I mean, they absolutely love it. They're joyous. There's so much smiling, and in an era, like you said, when a high schooler can just go about things, it's all about pressure and getting better. Like, you mix in a little bit of fun, and watch how much better that that player gets at baseball. Just throw some good old fashioned fun, and yeah, they dig it so much. I think they're reinvigorated with the game. So this travels. It's not just with 4 and 5 and 6 year olds. It goes up into middle school and high school.
Guys, if you're listening and have ever thought about bringing Domingo Ayala to your facility for his thing, I love it. Cool, great, wonderful. But I would highly consider you. I would highly encourage you to consider making a little space in your schedule for Coach Ballgame. This stuff is, it's so much fun. It's so much fun. Can you tell me how the Attaboy Challenge came to be? Tell them what it is and where it got its start.
Yeah, Attaboy Challenge, very organically. So the Attaboy Challenge, which has taken on its own hashtag and life of its own, is just when two kids look at each other with uncomfortable eye contact and they say Attaboy back and forth. And then after they've done that a few times, I'll say halt, and then the whole team will count down 3, 2, 1, and they scream Attaboy at the top of their lungs at the same time. And whoever yelled it the loudest wins. And we will do this thing after every bang bang play during our Sandlot game. We'll do it at random times. If I see two kids hustling after a ball or they're diving after a ball, Attaboy Challenge. And it becomes this reward. It's a reward. If somebody's given me a great team meeting pose, come on up. You've earned an Attaboy Challenge. The way it started was about maybe 4 years ago. I'm running a camp, and a kid dives for a ball, and it's an amazing catch. The hitter hits a line drive, and I think it was maybe the second baseman dives and makes a great catch. And the hitter, instead of pouting and running back to the dugout and boo-hooing, looks at the second baseman on the other team and says, "Attaboy." And without me saying anything, I'm just sitting there letting, this happen because the kids, they thought it up. The second baseman looks back at the batter and says it back, "Attaboy." And then I was like, ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
Wait a second. Let's try this. So we got those two players kind of into a ring, and everybody was surrounding them in the round. And I was like, okay, say it back and forth. Attaboy. A little louder. And it keeps building. And then we had a championship to see who would win. And, and now we do it with girls, the Attagirl Challenge. You won't see the players smile any bigger than when the coaches do it. When you get the 40-year-olds out there doing the Attaboy Challenge, the kids go nuts. So that's turned into the interpretive dance Attaboy Challenge now, where you have to add a dance to it, and most of the time that's a Fortnite dance, which I'm becoming educated on. But the worm is also mixed in there. But yeah, again, kids love to yell, so why not yell positive things? We're outside, we can do that. It's not the library, it's not school. Earns an Attaboy Challenge for the first time. They are locked in, and it's not bribery, but the whole awarding good effort, it borders it. I'm bribing them to be good people, to pay attention. They get to earn, a baseball card or an Attaboy or an Attagirl Challenge, and it's just a great way to pinpoint the good in the camp and to cause everybody to want to just be better.
This is fantastic. I have mixed in Attaboy with my 3-year-old. When I'd take him to some ball games, and even before the Attaboy, I said, well, there's got to be a list of some things you can yell.
Oh, no,
he can holler, right? When you're at the ball game, there's got to be some things to holler.
And that's the whole goal.
Attaboy is one of them. Attaboy is one of them.
Attaboy. And then, when I hear of camps in, I don't know, Washington, hey, man, we tried the Attaboy Challenge, and it's going great. We love it. It's a whole thing. Like, man, that's the point. Spread it like wildfire.
Outstanding. Ballgame. I could keep going. I'm having so much fun. What do you see? What do you see down the road, man? What's on the horizon for Coach Ballgame and Old Man Wrigley and Flamingo Jennings?
Well, I'm hoping that Major League Baseball will kind of see that this is something that should be pursued, and we've got a little small step forward from them partnering up to run these camps for play ball in Omaha in June. I'm at the All-Star game in July. I'll be running play ball camps there, and so I'll get to spread my thing at these MLB joints, and hopefully they'll just kind of see, okay, these kids are engaged, they're having a ball, and this can become a bigger thing, whether it's a show on network TV or digital, whatever it might be. Just I'd love this platform to. I'd love to be able to use this platform big time, and youth sports is everywhere. It's not just in California. It's not just in the United States. It's in Canada. It's all over the world. And if I can give moms and dads and coaches a resource on how to make kids love the game more and how to have more fun themselves, how to build a better relationship with their kid. Like, I mean, that how great would that be if you've got kids in India or South America doing an Attaboy challenge or talking about Roberto Clemente or trading baseball cards in Australia with their parents. Like, I mean, it can happen, and there should be a Sandlot game in the streets of the Middle East and Egypt. There can be that. So, I mean, my sights have always been big, and they'll keep growing to those big places, and hopefully MLB sees that like we do.
I love it. I'm going to put links to everything. The Twitter is @CoachBallGame. The website is CoachBallGame.com. I'm going to put links to all that stuff. I'm going to put links directly on the show notes page. There will be links to some of these videos that we referenced in this call today, but I definitely want to encourage everybody to go down that rabbit hole, go over to his YouTube page, go to the Instagram, and just realize that when you get there, you might need a couple hours to yourself, because you're just going to be in a corner just laughing your head off. We didn't even mention the baseball card biographies, which I think are some of the funniest pieces of content that I've seen all year. We might as well. Do you want to share that? You want to share what the heck is a baseball card biography?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've got all these boxes of 1980s baseball cards with Mark Lemke and Robin Yount, and it's like the kids these days, they don't know who that is, and a lot of them don't even know where to get a baseball card. So, in an effort to just bring it back, like bring back a baseball card. I've got this nice microphone here, and I'm able to do voiceovers, so I'll just put baseball cards together into a video, and then underneath it, I'll say facts about that player, and some of them might be true, some of them might be just for comical reasons, but I've done Mookie Wilson, and I've done Carney Lansford, keeping it present. I did a Mike Trout one as well, but I just wrote a song about the mustache in baseball, and I'll be dropping that in the next day or two. But one of the salutes I do all these salutes during the game. If somebody's being being a nice teammate, I'll give them a sportsmanship salute where you raise your arms up and show the kid your armpits. Or if somebody gets a leadoff single, we always do the mustache salute. If somebody's being real quick, we'll do the kitty cat salute and act like a cat. But the mustache was a big part of baseball back in the 1800s. The ball players wore big mustaches and suits and ties, and then it was also very fervent in the 1970s and 80s. So I'll drop the first stanza here for you. Never been heard, but the song is called "The Baseball Mustache." Raleigh's went up and the goose went down, but we shouldn't overlook the best mustache in town. It's the chevron. It's called the chevron. And the chevron was that, just simple patch of fur above the top lip there, a la Tom Selleck and John Smoltz and Tony Gwynn and Reggie Jackson and Kirk Gibson. Like that baseball mustache goes a little understated. You get the Fu Manchu, you get the curly Q, but let's give some love to the chevron mustache. And so, all kind of in a way of helping, satiate my hunger for marrying art with baseball. I can do it this way. I can have fun with it. I can sing songs and write poems and make little videos about baseball players I love and make it funny. So the best chevron of all time was Don Mattingly, no doubt about it. So
no doubt about it. And he also he is crossing over, because I did see a post you posted up on Twitter about a mullet recently.
Oh, we've got the mullet, and that kind of hop on there. That's up to, it's gotten a lot of retweets and things. And yeah, the mullet. I mean, baseball, the 1980s, and the mullet. I mean, man, that's peas and carrots.
Yeah, and Mattingly's at the middle of the whole thing. He's
great mullet, great mustache. He's got it all, man. And you think of Randy Johnson, like. He could strike a guy out and with his fastball, and then pick a guy off second with his mullet. He had it going on.
Well, if you got it when you dig into to Coach Ballgame social, and you look at from looks like April 27th, the history of the mullet. You posted up a song about the mullet, and this thing's got over 100 retweets and nearly 500 likes. It's incredible. But this is serious stuff. The mullet in baseball was big time.
Yeah, and then you tie in Patrick Swayze and John Stamos and all those great mullets of Hollywood, and now you've opened up a whole new batch of folks that are interested in baseball now, all because of Ellen DeGeneres' mullet.
Listen, I know that guy who flipped on the podcast to hear Travel Ball talk, and he realized that you weren't going to be talking about launch angles, and he turned this thing off long ago. That guy's too serious, man. We need more of this, more fun in the game. Speaking of mullets, and my friend Jeff Schaefer, former big leaguer, I think I shared his mullet with you in that thread. He was a recent guest on this very same podcast. He actually had a hat made up that says "Make Baseball Great Again." This guy wants to have fun, and his obviously his past hairstyles showed that.
Oh yeah.
Listen, I gotta let you go. We got
fun.
We got things to do. We got problems to solve. We're gonna keep in touch. I hope some folks reach out to you when they realize, the type of camp you're doing can have such a positive impact on their community. And to be realistic, it can have a positive impact on their business. I mean, if they get, a bunch more kids loving baseball in their community, what's that going to do for the baseball business in the community? It's going to be tremendous. So I hope some folks reach out to you, and we'll keep in touch. And man, I really have enjoyed this. I'm looking up. We've been on the phone a long time. This has been awesome. The positivity is just flowing, And I hope people recognize that and understand how important that is.
Thanks for having me, Coach Richie Prado, and pass it on, pay it forward, my man.
You got it, Coach Ballgame. We'll talk soon.
Attaboy.
Attaboy.
Bye-bye.
I'm having so much fun bringing these shows to you each week. If you'd like to recommend a coach for the show, please don't hesitate to shoot me a note at rich@playinschool.com or DM me on Twitter at playinschool. Again, my name is Rich Prado. I'm the founder of Play in School. My goal is to continue to create products and services that add value to you, the travel ball coaches, your players, and their parents. Visit playinschool.com to see some of the ways we're doing that. Or better yet, let's set up a call. Until next time, thank you for listening to Travel Ball Talk.